Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I guess we all can't believe that it's Thanksgiving week already, but there's still lots of business to do in the city as we lead up to the holiday. And one thing that we wanted to do is to deliver another arrow from our quiver in the general direction of the problem we've had with reckless use of ATVs in the city, all-terrain vehicles, off-road vehicles as they're often called. And this is a problem that has been plaguing New Bedford and many other cities in the United States and beyond. For whatever reason, there have been in many city neighborhoods a rash of incidents involving young folks and not so young folks getting behind the wheel of ATVs and driving recklessly, getting up on sidewalks, harassing and even tantalizing police officers, at times in direct violation of the law. And we've been working on this for some time now, and the work continues. I just want to share an incident that happened that I witnessed at some point, like late in the summer, in the middle of the summer. And it involved, I was walking up North Front Street, and I was talking to a woman who was out walking her dog, and I watched a guy in a mini bike come right down the sidewalk and sort of pass right by her, almost hit her dog. And then I watched him turn around, go back up the street, do some more circles around some little kids. And I thought either this guy's on drugs, and he may well have been, or he's just completely out of control. Either way, he was posing a danger to the community. And it's unfortunate that, that these things happen, but they happen all too often. And that particular incident was representative of a broader trend. Again, not unique to New Bedford, but we've been taking some lessons from other cities about how to deal with it. So, in the months since then, we've been working very hard to crack down. Since June, there have been some 69 all-terrain vehicles that have been seized and towed. There have been some 23 people arrested, another 15 who are charged and brought into court by summons. So we've been working on it, but as we saw over Halloween, this is a problem that persists. On Halloween night, our police department under Joe Cordeiro's leadership, and you'll hear from the chief in a moment, orchestrated a very sophisticated sweep of individuals who had planned to ride on ATVs. And these are guys that had set up on the internet, had been on Facebook and organized themselves to go out and basically tear through our neighborhoods. So the police were able, through the assistance of other law enforcement agencies, essentially swoop down on the crowd and corral them. But it shouldn't take those kinds of, and they did a fabulous job, and were able to arrest a number of folks, and that was a good thing. One police officer was injured that night, and it really brought home the two things. One is that these ATVs are a danger to the community. They are a danger to children. They are a danger to seniors. They erode the quality of life in our neighborhoods. They make us feel less safe. So we're not going to sit idly by and just watch it happen. We're not only going to continue to get out and get after these individuals who are very hard to catch. Any police officer will tell you that it requires oftentimes following people into private property and places where cars can't go. So that in itself, capture is a big problem. But when we do capture them, we'll let it be known what happens. So it happens to the individuals, and especially the ones who are caught on Halloween, but also to their vehicles. If you're doing this kind of behavior in New Bedford, chances are you're not going to get your precious vehicle back. And when I say precious, a lot of these guys, as we saw with the arrests on Halloween night, are not teenagers. The majority of them, just about all of them, were in their 20s. One guy was in his 30s. And in fact, we had one person we were aware of who was riding along with the group who was in his 50s. So time to grow up, guys. This is not the kind of behavior that we want in our neighborhoods. So With all these efforts, we want to bolster the strength of the city and law enforcement to deal directly with the problem. And so today we're announcing a joint effort by the mayor's office and the city council to beef up the law that allows our police department to do even more than it's doing to get at this problem. So through the work of Eric Jakes from the solicitor's office and along with the city council, we've prepared an ordinance that will expand the definition of ATV, all-terrain vehicle, so that people know that just about anything that isn't powered by pedaling and isn't a car is going to be caught up in the statute. And it defines very clearly the kinds of things that you can't do with one of these vehicles, and it sets down a fine of $300, which is the maximum that can be imposed under state law, and it provides for what happens once the vehicle is seized, that vehicles can be more readily seized, they can be more readily impounded, so that they're not put back out on the street. So we in New Bedford are doing our part to tamp down on this problem. I, for one, have had it. I mean, I can't tell you how many people, and I'm sure you'll hear it from the councilors as well, how many people in the city have come to me and said, these guys are reckless. I don't like, it makes my neighborhood feel less safe, and I don't like when my kids are walking outside around these things because they're dangerous individuals oftentimes who are driving them. So we're dealing with it, and we're dealing with it very directly, and I think the best way to deal with it, knowing that these people are often hard to capture, is to take the vehicles away, kiss them goodbye, they're gone, and you know, I think over time what we'll see is that they're going to go somewhere else, and hopefully the state legislature will act at some point to deal with the problem on a statewide basis. But we're not waiting for that in New Bedford. We're dealing with it right away. I wanted to say thanks to the members of the City Council, Council President Morad, and everybody, and I asked them to come on up and say a few words. This is a really great cooperative effort between my office and the solicitor's office and the City Council. The City Council's been talking about this for a while and digging into the problem as they should. So I just want to say thanks to each of you for your efforts. I want to say thanks to the chief for his team's efforts along the way as well. Now, with all that, and Deb Coelho was not going to speak today, but she did say, I want to credit her as the chairperson of the City Council's Public Safety Committee for really being a strong advocate for these matters. You've been unwavering about it, you've been relentless, and I really appreciate that. I also want to thank Linda Morad again for her leadership on this issue. And I want to call up two councilors who are standing to my left, who both have been on this issue from the get-go, and that's Steve Martins and Joe Lopes. And Steve, you're closest to the mic, so go right ahead.
Councilor Lopes. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, first of all, it was a pleasure working alongside by you and also the City Solicitor's Office. The goal here is that, just like the mayor, our police chief, and the council, we all have an obligation to keep New Bedford residents safe. Recreational vehicles have been a topic on the New Bedford City Council for some time now. Creating an ordinance and an issue, and if anyone has spent time in creating ordinances, you would know that it takes some time to make sure that we can get it right. Anyone can create an ordinance, but in all respect is that we want to make sure that if we create an ordinance that it has to be enforceable. So we're proud with Chief Cordeiro that this ordinance will work. His men and women of the department can enforce the ordinance that's before us. We can all agree that recreational vehicles, as the mayor has said, is a quality of life issue. They don't belong in our neighborhoods. We have an obligation to keep our motorists safe, our pedestrians safe, and to keep everyone safe. And this ordinance keeps New Bedford safe. As the ordinance chairman, I'm committed to pass this ordinance by the end of the year, as long as my colleagues agree with the ordinance and no changes before us, and we'll get it up and running. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Steve. Yes, thank you again for your leadership on this. It has been discussed very pointedly and thoroughly and deliberately by the City Council, and I think we've got a good product here. I also want to thank Joe Lopes for his leadership on the issue and ask him to say a few words. Joe.
Thank you. So as both Council Martins and the mayor said this has collectively been a joint meeting of the third floor and the second floor working together. Eric Jakes has been a phenomenal lead on this, as well as the police chief. One of the detectives in the police department actually gave it to me originally. It was a copy of the Boston's ordinance, and worked with Attorney Grotowski. And Attorney Grotowski and Attorney Jakes have worked really well. So this is a prime example of the third floor and the second floor working together. Council President Morad was there at the first meeting with the detectives in the police department, and she was all completely behind it. And Council Martins, as the chairman of ordinance, he's worked to make sure it stayed on a timeline to get it done within the timeline that we wanted to get it done with. The event that happened on Halloween was nothing that anybody planned, but it just brought into attention what we really need to do to make sure everyone in the city is safe. It doesn't matter where you live, from the north end to the south end, but we're a community, and we should all be able to walk across the street safely without having to be worried about somebody running in front of you with a bike or an ATV. So it's been an honor to work with everybody in this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you, Councilor Lopes. And last up, I just really want to thank Chief Cordeiro for his hard work. I think the operation on Halloween was very effective, very well planned, and again, brought home the idea that as much as we've made some traction on this issue, there's still work to be done, and that's why this ordinance, I think, is here before us today. But I'll just ask the chief to come on up and say a few words. Chief.
I'm just going to bring that down to my level.
It's not working anyway.
Oh, it's not working. All right. Well, I'd like to thank Mayor Mitchell and all the city councils for the incredible support and really getting ahead of this and giving us the tools that we need. We have some tools, but all the tools are always very helpful. At the same time, I'd like to thank the members of the New Bedford Police Department, the men and women that are working diligently out there, and what I would say is a very tricky and delicate situation when you have all these menacing riders out there putting the public's safety at risk, and trying to balance how to enforce that, to pursue them, not to pursue them, is frustrating for us because we're in the business of getting there and getting the job done. So I think they've done an incredible job. Just by the numbers, I think they speak for themselves. So I want to thank them, but I also want to thank the public, because some of this enforcement we've been able to do is because of the information that we have received from the public. Myself personally, being at neighborhood meetings, have received information that our detectives have been able to pursue and take some of these vehicles off the street. So to the public, please keep that information coming. Laws are great, but really the best is self-compliance. So if I can just take a moment and get a message out to these riders, their family, and their friends. It's imperative, it's essential, especially family and friends, that you get into these riders' heads for them not to go out there with this continued behavior. It's a matter of time before they're either going to create some serious injury to someone or kill someone or even themselves. And the question is, can you live with yourself knowing that someone you care about ends up paralyzed or dead, and you had an opportunity to try to get them to stop? So I urge you to reach out to these guys and tell them just to stop this behavior before something happens that we cannot reverse. And to the rest of the public, again, continue the information coming. Go to our website. You can give this information to us anonymously, which you have, by text, by email, tip line, or the old-fashioned way, you can send us a letter with no return address with as much detailed information where these vehicles are being kept. To that end, I thank you for that support from the public, and of course from again, the City Council and the Mayor's office have been incredible, and I really appreciate it. I think it goes really and highlights what the city's all about. People always coming together to do the right thing and move the city forward. And also would echo Mayor Mitchell's message to the state legislators, if they can put some other extra laws in there that would give us a few more tools in our belt, that would be great too. So thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Chief. Yeah, it really bears emphasizing, as with every public safety issue, the more information that we can get from the public, the better the police will be at enforcing the law. So I just encourage all of you out there who are listening to this to step on up. This is, and it just, one thing that I think also bears emphasizing is you hear a lot of times when people say, well, why can't the police catch a lot of these people? And again, I think we alluded to it before, but it is very difficult for police to pursue people on all-terrain vehicles, right? Because by definition, the all-terrain vehicles can go off-road. And when they go into people's backyards or into the woods, it's not only physically hard for police to chase after them, even along pathways that are wide enough for a car, but there are all sorts of liability issues that come up with chases that end up in backyards. So the enforcement concept here is, yeah, it's hard to catch them, but when we catch them, it's going to be really bad news for the perpetrator, right? And so anybody, upon seeing somebody get get arrested or have their vehicle seized and impounded, might think twice about getting on one of these things again. So with all that, again, great team effort. Thank you, everybody, for weighing in. I really appreciate the leadership and the initiative of the City Council on this, as well as the Solicitor's Office. And I'm ready for questions.
Mr. Mayor, both you and the chief both mentioned that you'd like to see tougher laws from the legislature.
Yep.
What do you want to say?
Well, it would, to my mind, Adam, it would be, tougher penalties, right? So we are statutorily capped at $300, right? So that we're maxed out. We put a $300 fine in that ordinance. We can't go higher because state law doesn't allow it. We'd like the fine to be higher. We'd probably like a little more leeway to impound vehicles. I think this ordinance goes a long way to help that. But the more, the better. And then there are probably some vehicles that are worth outlawing, that or at least on city streets. Particularly ones that some of those real mini dirt bikes, the ones that have tires that are the diameter that's all of about a foot long. I mean, those are inherently dangerous. They're inherently dangerous for the riders. They're inherently dangerous for neighborhoods. Those are probably things that should be outlawed outright. Those are just a few suggestions off the top of my head.
Well, obviously, the city has limits with an ordinance like this. Maybe this is a better question for the chief. But when someone violates this, when you pull somebody over for a dirt bike or ATV or whatever on a city street, are they going to face a criminal charge, or is that going to be on a case-by-case basis? And if so, what sort of criminal charge are they going to face?
Well, I mean, I could field that if you want to weigh in too, Joe. Yeah, I mean, they'll face a criminal charge if they violated a criminal law. I mean, I guess that's the short answer to the question, right? So if they're if they are engaged in conduct that violates the reckless endangerment statute or other criminal provision, destruction of property, whatever, they would face a criminal charge. At a minimum, one thing people should know is that when these guys are pulled over, police have found that the vast majority of the vehicles are not registered. So they end up getting impounded, and what this ordinance does in particular is it expands the definition of those vehicles that can get impounded. So there's a lot more clarity now. There's a lot more sweep to the to the police's reach. You want to add to that?
And we every opportunity that we have, we use the law to its maximum ability and effect. So when there is elements of the crime, that will support a criminal charge. And most of these 69 citations had a criminal charge to it. We're also requesting administrative hearings on the licenses for those that are licensed to have their license revoked. So we'll utilize it to the maximum. I think earlier you had asked a question, what else would we be looking from the legislators? Two pieces, and one is how we dispose these vehicles, give us some more latitude in just destroying them. And the other piece is if they could put some legislation on really locking and regulating what is used as proof of ownership, so that we go beyond, just a scrappy piece of paper, someone writing around using it as proof of ownership, because then we got to give up the vehicles. So if they could do those two things for us, that'd start to go a long way in keeping these vehicles off the road.
So forgive my ignorance, they don't have to be registered, or some do and some don't?
Right, some do. So you have some motorcycles that can be enduro bikes, they can be on-road and off-road, so they can be registered to be on-road, and some cannot be registered to go on-road. But you can still register with the environmental police a recreational vehicle. But the problem is when we impound these vehicles and they're at a tow company and you come and say, this is my vehicle, we need something that is going to require a higher level of proof of ownership beyond a scrappy piece of paper with 2 signatures and a date and some nominal fee that was exchanged.
Yeah, I think some of that particular problem can be addressed through changes in administrative policy as well. So to just, so to add some clarity about when someone, under what circumstances someone can reclaim a vehicle that person purports to own. Carlos?
Now, I'm assuming a big percentage of these are stolen vehicles. Now, wouldn't surveillance, maybe place a van somewhere with a camera, be a little, a better idea to catch these guys.
To what, to catch them stealing?
No, to catch them on their bikes. I mean, if you go to the local gas stations, you talk to the girls that work behind the counter, and they'll let you know they gas with the, you just set up a van there with a camera and just.
Now,
watch
do you,
the guys
so you
come
want
off the bike.
to address that operational question?
So, just so you know, that is some of the things that we have been doing. But the other piece of, I think what you're gonna be seeing in this ordinance once it passes through is a lot of these riders are masking up. They're putting masks or bandanas on their faces. So they don't have to go inside. As you know, you can just, if you got a credit card, you can just credit card out, which leaves us a trail, yes, but we are looking at that as well.
Chief.
Yeah, go ahead. And
Is there a place online or anywhere where the public could find where they can ride these bikes legally?
Well, a lot of it is, you're restricted by land, right? So if it's private land, you gotta get permission from the landowner. That's, around here, there's not a whole lot of spots. So you gotta probably start going out further west in the state, or New Hampshire, Maine, places like that.
Now, what was the percentage on the last batch of bikes you guys did on Halloween? How many were stolen?
So we're still conducting that investigation. It's ongoing. As you, that night, we were able to grab 9 that were arrested, and then post that, the investigation led up to another 6 other individuals. So all those vehicles, we're still working on tracking them all down. Some of those VINs are either scratched out or pierced out. They're not readable, so it's taking us a little bit more time to track down.
And if they are discovered to be stolen, are they potentially returned to the owner?
If we can identify the owner, yes. And if they are proven to be stolen, then it gives us an ability to have an additional charge to the operator.
go ahead, Greg.
You mentioned how tricky and delicate it is pursuing these individuals. Will this ordinance change in any way the department goes after pursuing or going after these vehicles on or off road?
No, because the operation is still the same out there. They're out there driving it. It's their behavior that the ordinance is going to really lock down for us. And it's going to give us an additional tool, as the mayor talked about, in terms of how we impound these vehicles. And so that's really it. It's still very slippery and delicate for an officer out in the street to make that decision. So on October 31st, it was a perfect storm for us because we had good information and we were able to put an incredible team together to lock that all down, and I think we were very effective. I think there was another community out of state in Connecticut that tried to do something very similar that did not have the success rate that we did. So it's challenging for us every day. So that's why self-compliance is the better road to be taken here. If these guys just can come to good reasoning, common sense, and stop this behavior, and their loved ones can get to them, then I think we're heading in the right direction.
Mayor, was there any discussion about limiting the sale of these vehicles in Bedford?
I'm not even sure how many places actually sell these things. I don't think there are too many stores, maybe one.
One really that sells it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of these are not bought, that are seized, that have not been bought directly from a legitimate retailer.
You need to admit that, man, they're mostly stolen.
I think that's fair to say, that most of them are
So
stolen.
this law you just
Yeah.
created really isn't targeted towards who?
There's a lot of legitimate folks that are driving. I think as the mayor was talking about, that
Yeah.
50-year-old that was pulling wheelies in the south end,
But
legitimately owns
was
that
that
vehicle.
in Durrell though?
No. But there are those that legitimately own them as well.
But there are many that are sold in town, in other words, so it's probably not
The
a big.
majority are stolen, sir.
I'm asking the mayor a question.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So there's not many places that sell them.
No, no. All right, anybody else? All right, thanks, guys, appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving.